This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're coming to you live on location in New York City. Next to me is Scott Carmer from Orgenesis Inc. It's a publicly traded company, and the symbol is ORGS. Scott, welcome to SNNLive.
Shelley, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's good to have you. We've had Orgenesis on before, I think back in May. Mm-hmm. So let's get an overview from you, just in case any listeners aren't aware of Orgenesis yet.
So Orgenesis is a company that's dedicated to curing type 1 diabetes. We have a technology that we believe will actually enable a cure. It's focused on regenerative medicine, so it's a technology that actually regenerates a type 1 diabetic patient's ability to produce insulin. And the technology is referred to as cellular transdifferentiation.
So this is a company completely focused on type 1 diabetes.
At the present time, we're completely dedicated to finding a cure for type 1 diabetes.
The market is huge. What about you? Do you have any personal reasons for being involved in this company?
I do. So I have a daughter that's been living with type 1 diabetes. Her name's Anna, and she was diagnosed in 2008. So for 7 years, as a family, we've been living with her and her diabetes. So I have a very personal connection. I'm very passionate about helping her.
So what's your background?
My background is actually 27 years with the biopharmaceutical industry. I've been with companies GlaxoSmithKline, Amgen, Genentech, MedImmune. Most recently, I was the chief commercial officer for MedImmune. And I took a pause in my career to take a step back and say it's wonderful. I've been blessed, I think, to work with some of the most passionate, creative, dedicated scientists in the world. And now I wanted to take a step back and find the same kind of scientists that were focused exquisitely on type 1 diabetes and helping my daughter.
In a way, I want to say the company's lucky to have you because you're not easy to get. You drop out of big pharma because you have a passionate reason to do so. So let's talk about the science, because I know you must have done some very heavy evaluations here before you made this step.
I actually did 4 months of my own literature review where I was looking for any kind of published information on science or scientists that were fundamentally focused on the natural history of this disease and addressing the natural history. I actually found Orgenesis through the literature. I had looked at stem cells, I had looked at precursor stem cells, at induced pluripotent stem cells, at mesenchymal stem cells, and I found transdifferentiating cells. I was so intrigued by it, I'd never heard of anything like it. I actually hopped on a plane and flew to Israel to meet the founding scientist that was driving cellular transdifferentiation, Professor Sarah Ferber. And when you say they feel lucky to have me, let me tell you, after a week of visiting with Sarah Ferber in her lab and really understanding the technology, I asked her if there was anything possible that I could do to help them. And so I feel like I'm the very lucky one that's now been, personally engaged with bringing this science from the research laboratory into the clinic.
Scott, I heard the word cure come out of your mouth. Usually I hear the word treatment more than I hear the word cure. So let's kind of define what you mean.
So I would agree. I will tell you that the companies I've worked for, no one dared to use that word. But I can also tell you now that based on the evolution of science and biology and our understanding of biology, we are curing disease. You can think about cancer. There's a lot of exciting technology that's in the clinic right now that are taking patients that had a 6-month sentence, a death sentence, and 6 years out they're in complete remission. And so we are curing disease. And so for the first time, and I think it's cell-based therapies, it's really, really getting to the biological root of disease and training cells, to do what they're supposed to do. In this case, it's the immune system, both in cancer and in autoimmune disease. And so I think the advances in biology, the advances in cell-based therapy actually embolden us to use that word.
What's new in the company?
So I think since the last time you spoke to Vered, quite a bit on our manufacturing front. So we talk about cell-based therapies. Manufacturing living cells is completely different than punching out a pill or even manufacturing a protein or an antibody. And so to have what we call GMP or good manufacturing practice systems in place where time after time, patient after patient, batch after batch, we can end up with a living cell as a product that can be fully characterized in terms of potency, in terms of purity, in terms of identity, within very, very specific specifications. That's a major step forward. And quite frankly, that was the one step that was, the rate limiter for us getting into the clinic. So with that kind of now, as we speak, being finalized, we will very, very soon put together, what's called an IND package. We will take our submission to the FDA, and we'll ask for permission to start testing the therapy in humans.
Scott, let's talk for a minute. If you're going in this direction, would the FDA give you an accelerated breakthrough designation?
Well, that would certainly be something that we would make a strong case for, and that's a discussion with the agency, and that is dependent on early clinical data. And I think if the product behaves in the human system the way that we expect it to, then that should be an acceptable goal for us to have.
Let's get into what your expectations are specifically for 2016.
So we will, early in 2016, we will submit our IND to the FDA here and to the regulatory authority in Europe. And basically that's presenting a packet of information and evidence to support the safety and efficacy of your product. And you're basically asking for permission to take the technology into human testing. So we can only control what we can, and we can control, I think, when we submit the IND. Hopefully the FDA and the agencies will agree that the evidence supports taking it into human testing. And as soon as we get that okay, we will take it directly into phase 1 human testing.
Now it's time to let our audience know how to get some more information on the company. So please provide your website.
Certainly, you can visit the company at Orgenesis, ORGENESIS.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Carmer, Orgenesis Inc. It's a publicly traded company, and the symbol is ORGS. I'm Shelley Kraft. We're coming to you live on SNNLive On-Location in New York City. Scott, pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Shelley.